You're being paranoid again. My husband said it with that calm, patient smile that made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. Across the kitchen table, my phone screen still showed the message Danielle had sent him 15 minutes earlier. Did you tell her yet? Ryan didn't even look at it. She's like a sister to me, Natalie, he said, pouring coffee like we were discussing the weather instead of my marriage. I nodded slowly, because arguing with Ryan had always ended the same way. I became emotional. He became logical. And somehow I ended up apologizing. My name is Natalie Foster, and that morning I realized something important. When someone keeps telling you you're crazy for noticing things, it usually means you're not. So instead of fighting, I did something Ryan never expected. I agreed. You're right, I said quietly. His shoulders relaxed immediately. The conversation was over in his mind. What he didn't know was that later that afternoon I sat across from a private investigator named Daniel Ortiz in a quiet office downtown. I slid Ryan's photo across the desk. I'm not looking for reassurance, I told him calmly. I'm looking for the truth. Daniel studied the picture for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Just be ready, he said. Sometimes the truth is loud. Daniel Ortiz didn't promise drama. That was the first thing I respected about him. No hidden cameras in bedrooms, he said, leaning back in his chair. But people who are hiding something always repeat patterns. Patterns. The word stayed with me the whole drive home. At home, Ryan greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek and a distracted smile. Long day, he asked, loosening his tie. Busy, I said. He moved around the kitchen comfortably, opening the fridge, talking about office deadlines like nothing in our life was fractured. The smell of Danielle's floral perfume clung faintly to his jacket. I didn't mention it. That night we watched television on the couch. Ryan laughed at a comedy show while scrolling through his phone. Every few minutes the screen lit up with messages. I already knew who they were from. 3 days passed quietly. Then Daniel called. His voice was calm, but careful. Natalie, he said. Yes. I've been following your husband for 2 days. My stomach tightened. And he meets Danielle regularly, Daniel replied. Same place every time. A small Italian restaurant on Pine Street. I closed my eyes slowly. Are they? Daniel didn't rush his answer. They don't act like coworkers. My voice came out steady. Do you have proof? Yes, he said. And there's something else you need to see. I met Daniel the next afternoon in a quiet cafe 2 blocks from his office. He arrived carrying a slim gray envelope. No dramatic expression. No awkward sympathy. Just quiet professionalism. He slid the envelope across the table. Take your time, he said. My hands were steady when I opened it. The first photo showed Ryan and Danielle sitting close together in a corner booth at a small restaurant. Too close. The second photo showed them leaving the building together. Ryan's hand resting casually on the small of her back. My chest tightened, but I kept looking. The third photo was worse. Ryan and Danielle standing outside an apartment building. Kissing. Not quick. Not accidental. Comfortable. Like it had happened many times before. I closed the envelope slowly. Around us the cafe continued like normal. People laughing, spoons clinking against mugs, while something inside my marriage quietly collapsed. How long? I asked. Daniel leaned back slightly. From what I can see, at least a few months. That hurt more than I expected. Because for months, Ryan had looked me in the eyes and called me paranoid. There's more, Daniel said gently. He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward me. A short video began playing. Ryan and Danielle sat at the same restaurant table. Then Ryan leaned forward and kissed her again. Only this time I noticed something else. They were sitting under a large television screen. The same television hanging in the restaurant where Ryan planned his birthday dinner. I watched the video twice. Not because I needed confirmation. Because I needed to understand how comfortable Ryan looked. The man in that video didn't look guilty. He looked relaxed, happy. Like the life he shared with Danielle required no lies. I handed Daniel's phone back carefully. That restaurant, I said quietly. What's the name again? Vincenzo's, he replied. I nodded slowly. Ryan had already chosen the location for his birthday dinner. Vincenzo's, he had said casually a week earlier. Our favorite place. Our favorite place. Apparently, it was someone else's favorite too. Did you want copies of everything? Daniel asked. Yes. He handed me a small envelope with printed photos and a flash drive containing the video footage. Clear enough that no one can misunderstand, he said. I placed the envelope in my purse. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel asked the question people always ask in situations like this. What are you planning to do? I thought about Ryan's birthday dinner, about the long table he had reserved, about the friends and family he had invited. Then I smiled slightly. Attend. Daniel studied my expression carefully. Are you sure that's a good idea? I stood up and picked up my purse. No, I said calmly, but it's the right one. Ryan's birthday dinner arrived quietly. All week he acted perfectly normal. He joked about getting older, asked if I'd ordered his favorite chocolate cake, even kissed my forehead before leaving for work every morning. Watching him felt strange, like observing someone who didn't realize the truth was already waiting for him. Saturday evening we drove to Vincenzo's together. Ryan reached over the center console and squeezed my hand. Thanks for planning tonight, he said warmly. I didn't want a big party this year. Just the people who matter. I nodded politely. When we entered the restaurant, the long table was already full. Friends laughed, glasses clinked, the room buzzed with birthday chatter. And sitting halfway down the table was Danielle.
She smiled when she saw me.
Polite, careful, like we were both pretending to play the same normal evening. I smiled back. Dinner moved along easily. Pasta arrived, wine poured, stories were shared. Ryan looked happy. Halfway through dessert he stood and tapped his glass with a spoon. Everyone, he said, raising his wine glass. Thank you for coming tonight. Guests quieted. Ryan glanced toward me and smiled. And of course, I couldn't do life without my incredible wife. Several people clapped softly. That was my cue. I reached into my purse. Ryan continued smiling as he spoke. To another year with the people I love most, he said, lifting his glass slightly. Around the table, everyone watched him with warm expressions. His sister raised her glass. One of his friends laughed and shouted something about getting older. Then I stood up. Actually, I said calmly, before Ryan finishes his speech, I have a little birthday surprise. Ryan looked at me, confused but still smiling. Oh, he said. Across the table Danielle shifted slightly in her chair. I reached into my purse and pulled out the small flash drive Daniel had given me earlier that week. The restaurant manager stood near the bar, exactly where I'd spoken to him earlier. I held up the drive. Would you mind playing that video on the screen? I asked. Above the dining room hung a large television normally used for sports broadcasts. The manager hesitated for half a second. Ryan's smile faded. Natalie, he said quietly. What are you doing? I met his eyes calmly, showing everyone the truth. The manager inserted the drive. The screen flickered.
For a second it was black.
Then the video appeared. Ryan and Danielle sitting together in the same restaurant, leaning across the table,
Kissing.
The room fell silent. The silence spread across the restaurant like a shockwave. For a few seconds no one spoke. Then someone gasped. On the screen above us, Ryan leaned across the table and kissed Danielle again. The same booth. The same restaurant. The same room we were sitting in right now. A fork clattered onto a plate. Ryan stood up, so quickly his chair tipped backward.
Turn that off, he snapped.
But the video kept playing. Danielle's face had gone completely white. Ryan turned toward me, panic breaking through his voice. Natalie, this isn't what you think. That sentence almost made me laugh. What do I think it is? I asked calmly. Around us, guests stared openly now. His friends looked stunned. His sister covered her mouth with her hand. The footage showed Ryan brushing Danielle's hair behind her ear, then kissing her again. There was no misunderstanding possible. Ryan ran both hands through his hair. You're humiliating me, he said through clenched teeth. I tilted my head slightly. No, I replied quietly. You humiliated yourself. The video ended. The screen went dark. Ryan looked around the room at the faces staring back at him. Then he noticed something. Danielle wasn't sitting anymore. She had already stood up. and she was walking toward the door. Danielle didn't look back. Her chair scraped loudly across the floor as she stood, grabbed her purse, and hurried toward the restaurant exit. Ryan called after her. "Danielle, wait." But she kept walking. The door closed behind her with a dull thud, leaving Ryan standing in the middle of a room full of people who now understood exactly what they had just watched. For a moment, he looked completely lost. Then he turned back to me. His voice dropped into something desperate. "Natalie, we can talk about this at home." Home. The words sounded hollow. I picked up my purse slowly. "I listened to you talk for months," I said calmly. "You just didn't realize I was hearing the truth." Ryan glanced around the table again. His friends avoided eye contact. His sister stared down at her plate. Even the waiter standing nearby looked uncomfortable. The confident man, who had called me paranoid, was suddenly very small. "You didn't have to do this in public," he muttered. I paused beside the table. "Yes," I said quietly. "I did." Then I walked toward the exit Danielle had taken moments earlier. Behind me, Ryan was still standing there. For the first time in a long time, he had nothing left to say. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt calm.